Here's what happened. I posted 936 videos on YouTube in less than 10 months. Those got 250,000 views and 278 subscribers. If you just look at the views versus subscribers, you think this dude doesn't get marketing, I'm not going to pay attention to him. And that is very reasonable to say. I'd agree with you. But my number one goal was not to go viral. It was to feel safe in my nervous system of being my real self on camera. And I know how that sounds, and so I want to explain what I mean. I compared video me to the real me, who I am with my close friends or my life partner, Adriana. Why this matters is so many entrepreneurs act different on camera than in real life. That gap, it wastes a ton of time and energy with overthinking, trying to be perfect. You feel exhausted and you can hit burnout. Trust falls in that gap. If you aren't being the real you, then the people's bullshit radar will signal something is off when they look at your videos, which will make it harder for you to get new clients and customers for the services or products you know can have a positive impact on their life. And that can keep you stuck and feel exhausted. So I'm going to share with you one simple comparison shift that made me the most consistent I've been in showing up in my marketing, and it's one that you can use today. And to save you over 6 years and hundreds of pieces of content focused on the wrong goal that I had to go through to get this lesson. Before we get into it, let me remind you, this is Make Burnout Extinct. I'm Robert David Weeks. All right, so I have a story for you. Literally, in the first couple of days being in a relationship with Adriana, I told her I wanted to be completely honest with her. No holding back. She is going to get the real me. We were living together in a house in Austin, Texas for that month, so there's no hiding. What really surprised me was how incredibly comfortable I felt with her after that commitment and the relief I felt from it. I then wanted to make a similar commitment to how I show up in my marketing as the real me and not feeling like I'm putting on a mask. So my point is, if you never felt super comfortable showing up consistently in your marketing, then it's really hard right now to imagine how much of your potential you're letting waste away in that void of the gap between the video you and the real you. So the plan is to tell you the simple comparison shift right now, then the mistakes that I made in implementing that shift so that you can get the lessons without the scars. Let's rock and roll. Here is the simple comparison shift. It is spend less time comparing yourself to the best marketers in your industry and overthinking how you should show up. Spend more time in comparing your video you to the real you of how you talk with the people you care about the most. Focus on shrinking the gap. The more real you are, less editing that's going to be required, especially if you're prepared. The less energy you waste overthinking, trying to be perfectly polished. And then the more trust you actually build with the people watching your stuff. Simple enough, but a lot easier said than done. And you're probably even thinking right now, I knew this. I'd be thinking the same thing, but I still made the mistakes. So please stick with me here. I'll share with you what changes I've made that have worked to save a ton of time and energy in recording. Here's the full list, and then we're going to go through each one. I'll explain what they mean. Blueprint to placeholder is the first, then stage to lab, and then quantity to quantity. So I want to kick it off with the blueprint to placeholder. Since starting in business over 10 years ago as a DJ, I was on a quest to find the secret sauce that would solve all my business problems. It's like the genie lamp in Aladdin that could grant you 3 wishes. I was wishing to find a shortcut. At the core, this want for a shortcut was coming from an absurd amount of frustration for not understanding how business works, the marketing, the sales, the systems. So I'd get into the habit of finding successful business owners and then try to follow their exact steps for how I can be successful too. I thought there was a secret blueprint that would make me successful with my business. And there was a few problems that I had with this blueprint approach. There were 3 that I want to focus on: the identical problem, the different phase problem, and then starting from scratch problem. So let me start with the identical problem. I am not identical to any of these successful business owners. I'm a different person. Therefore, I'm going to have different goals for my business and how it supports my life. So if you follow the exact steps with no adaptations to your circumstances, it's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Then with the different phase problem. When successful business owners give their current habits to be successful, it's usually filtered through what are they doing now, not back at the phase you are in with your business. A podcaster, Chris Williamson, and entrepreneur Alex Ramosi had a great conversation about this different phase problem. And as a side note, if you're trying to move through the terrifying uncertainty of how are you going to pay your bills as an entrepreneur, Sometimes using the anger you feel about the doubters and the haters can be a powerful fuel. Then for the starting from scratch problem, at some point, you'll have to adapt your marketing strategy to keep staying consistent and getting the results that you want for your business. For a long time, I didn't realize this. So every time I stopped being consistent with the blueprint of a successful business owner, I would feel massively disappointed and then stay way too long in my own pity party. And then I'd find another blueprint to follow and then feel like I'd have to get rid of everything from the last blueprint. This pattern, it kept going, and it was extremely painful until I got the lesson that I can keep the communication skills I enjoyed the most and that created the best results from all of these different blueprints, and then use them as a foundation for my own communication style. And it's like choosing your favorite meal from your favorite restaurants and then creating a whole new menu with all your top favorite meals from your favorite restaurants over the years. And then with communication style, I want to go down this side quest with you. And I feel it's important to share with you that there are 3 gatekeepers that I have to move through to understand my communication style. If you don't really know your communication style, then this can be very helpful. The 3 are be prepared, minimize hesitation, and then maximize passion. So I'll start with be prepared. It's being familiar with the subject matter that I'm talking about with you. Making sure I either have done it or I know I have the knowledge to talk about it. Then it's minimize hesitation, which is to speak like you're talking to a close friend, less overthinking the words you're saying in the moment. And then with maximize passion, it's focus on sharing with a friend instead of performing. So it's like a shift from feeling nervous to excited. And then I went through habit changes with all 3 of these areas. For be prepared, I went from winging it to writing out the ideas that I'm going to talk about and why I'm sharing it with you. For the minimizing of hesitation, it's instead of the multiple takes to do just one take for the video and then move through any mistakes. And then with maximize passion, it's feeling, instead of feeling stuffy, which is what was happening, it's to imagine I'm sharing these ideas late at night on the couch with a close friend. And then it's going to be a positive outcome for the experience because of course it's going to be because I'm just talking to a close friend. And so it's getting into that shift. So I want to bring it actually back now to the change that I made from blueprint to placeholder. Over the years, I've been inspired by entrepreneurs like Alex Hormozi, Stephen Bartlett, Joe Rogan, Chris Williamson, and Tony Robbins. But instead of looking to them as my blueprint of success, or for success, I'd figured out the one communication skill I really liked the most in each one of them that I can use as a placeholder until with enough repetitions, I can then add my own flavor to the skill for my communication style. So with Alex Hormozi, creator of the podcast, The Game, I like how he simplifies complex ideas. Stephen Bartlett, I really like, he's the creator of the podcast, Diary CEO, and I really like how he asks the deep, thoughtful questions. Joe Rogan, the creator of the podcast, Joe Rogan Experience, I really like how he switches from philosopher in one moment to then the buddy you can shoot the shit with the next. And then Chris Williamson, creator of the podcast, Modern Wisdom, I like how he packages these ideas in an entertaining, digestible way. And then Tony Robbins, speaker and the first voice online that inspired me to go on my personal growth journey. So what I really like about him is his passion to finding the solutions. And so instead of doing the hundreds of different things each entrepreneur does when they're communicating to their audience, I practice that one communication skill until my nervous system is familiar with it and understands the pattern. Then I'll add my own twist to the skill, so it's in my communication style. This is something that you can apply to the entrepreneurs that inspire you. It can really save a lot of time here. And just, I didn't realize I was doing this over the years. So it's only looking back, I saw this pattern. And so that's why I go to, it could save you years of time to get this lesson. So that's the first one. Now I want to move into the stage to lab. And I have another story for you. I was staying with Adriana at her grandma's house. And one night I was putting off recording a podcast episode. I kept getting stuck in the first minute and having to start over. Looking back, I was blocking my own communication style because I wasn't prepared by writing out the ideas or all the ideas that I wanted for the episode. And I was doing a lot more than one take. I don't think it was that episode, but I've done over 80 takes before for one episode. Yeah. So that night I kept feeling like, all right, I'm hitting a wall. It kept getting closer to the 2 a.m. deadline I'd set for myself. And I was feeling exhausted. So I had this feeling and this moment ahead of, fuck it. I'll do it live. I did one full take. I finished before 2 a.m. and I showed up more like the real me. After a lot more painful experiences like this one, I got the lesson that you'll survive being the real you on camera. Before that final take, my nervous system went from being driven by this belief that I am talking on stage to a room full of experts way smarter than me, which blocked me, to instead connecting to this belief that I'm talking late at night with a close friend on the couch, which relaxed me. And so when you feel stressed recording a video, it's because the perceived demand is greater than your perceived capacity for it. And a question that you can ask yourself when you feel the pressure in your body is, what belief is driving my nervous system right now? Then you can remind yourself multiple times, like I've had to, that you're just talking to a close friend on the couch. Now I want to highlight 3 big mistakes with my nervous system being driven by the old belief I'm in a room full of experts, because that could be coming up for you, is you have that feeling. These mistakes, they raised my stress levels in recording videos and reduced my self-trust in sharing the real me. I hope you can get the lessons and avoid these mistakes. So there are 3: the shallow breathing mistake, poker face mistake, fluff mistake. So I'll start with the shallow breathing mistake. When my breathing is quick and shallow, my mind, it like pinballs to overthinking how I should say things. I try to distract myself and avoid being present in the moment. I don't feel safe. So then I put up the walls to block my communication style. This is when you feel like you have a mask, or when you're communicating, on camera. Then with the poker face mistake, if you don't feel safe with someone, then you're less willing to show how you really feel when you're talking to them. When people look at your videos, they can have a hard time relating to you because you have a poker face. It's hard to build trust when someone can't relate to you. And then with the fluff mistake, you start adding unnecessary filler words to your communication. When this happens to me, I notice it's because I'm less confident in my knowledge of the subject matter that I'm talking about, so I need to be more prepared. And then I went through habit changes with each one of these mistakes. So instead of the shallow breathing, I went to deep breathing and letting out all the air on the exhale, and then placing my hand on my stomach to add a little pressure if I need to. I do the deep breathing until I feel my shoulders drop and release the tension. The not feeling in my stomach becomes way less intense. And then usually, as I'm saying it, I yawn, which is a sign that I am much more relaxed in the moment. It happens every time. Then with poker face, I went from that to wiggling my nose, blinking slowly, opening my mouth. And I would switch between these movements. They sound a little ridiculous, but it's until I yawn, which again is a sign that I'm much more relaxed in that moment. And then instead of saying fluff, I went to writing out the words I want to say, and then cutting out all the parts that don't support the point I want to make in the video. Then I'll practice saying the words, so my nervous system can be familiar with the new cadence of the words, not necessarily the words themselves, because it can be really awkward at first when you cut out the fluff. Now, with these habits, they help to provide the evidence for my belief change from on stage, that room full of experts that are way smarter than me, to being in my own lab with my social media accounts. This is where the experimenting ideas late at night on the couch talking to a friend. When you make this belief change for what drives your nervous system, you're more willing to then make mistakes with a close friend. So you spend less time overthinking how you show up on camera and more time testing to see if you're being the real you. The more repetitions you do, the faster your nervous system can become familiar with the real you showing up on camera. And then asking feedback from people closest to you, which parts in the video seem like the real you, can help to show your own blind spots and speed up your nervous system to become familiar with the belief that you can show up as a real you on camera. And as a side note with this, for asking people closest to you, don't ask them about the content of the video itself, just how you're showing up, unless they're familiar with the subject matter. That could save you a lot of arguments. Then for the next one is quantity to quantity. Let's get into that one. Here's another story. Adriana and I were in Santa Barbara a few months back, and there was one day I recorded 40 videos for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. As I was getting closer to 40 videos, I had these 2 thoughts that were battling me as I kept recording in the living room of the rental we were staying at. The first was I couldn't believe this was actually possible. And then the second thought was, I'm fucking going to get these 40 videos done. When I saw all 40 videos, it unlocked a new level of what I believe I'm capable of with quantity. As a side note, these were all separate videos from like 30, 60 seconds that I recorded on my phone. In the past, that would have taken weeks to get this done. And now my nervous system is experiencing getting 40 videos recorded in a single day. That I used them all for my marketing. So if I was not aware of my emotions, I could have taken the doubt I felt that day as something is wrong. I should stop. But for the context, I knew that was my nervous system not familiar with 40 videos in one day and wanting some reassurance that this is what I want, which is where I had the thought, I'm going to get these 40 videos done. Then I gave space for my nervous system. This is really important to adjust to this new reality at the end of the day by recovering from the workload with a body scan that I went through and then just chilling on the couch with Adriana and hanging out. So there are 2 points I want to highlight with this. When you have less overthinking, you have more repetitions to be the real you on camera. And with more repetitions, you will need more recovery for your nervous system to be familiar with this new baseline. And then I have these simple reminders that you can use to speed up your nervous system to be familiar with the new baseline that can really help you out. Therefore, maximize preparation time, then minimize video takes, minimize pauses between videos, and then maximize recovery time. So I'll start with maximize preparation time. Have the ideas written out for the video rather than winging it. I've done both, and I notice I save a lot of time when the ideas are written out. For the minimize video takes, the goal is one take. I feel more like the real me on one take for the recording, especially when I'm prepared, and it saves a lot of time for the business. Then with minimize pause between videos, especially helpful when I'm moving to a new level of video quantity, going back to those 40 videos, to minimize the doubt and resistance from my body that can come up. And then with maximize recovery time, have this prepared beforehand so that your nervous system knows there will be space to rest afterwards. This gave me more confidence to move through recording the videos. And then I have 2 other lessons that took way too long for me to accept when it comes to quantity. The first is that when you are making changes to how you show up on camera, improvements to be more like the real you on camera, there will be a dip in quantity. I used to get really frustrated with myself when the dip happened, and that kept me in the dip way longer. But the reality is your nervous system, it needs time to get familiar with these changes. And then the second is more quantity will lead to more opportunities to reach new people that you don't know your business. So put out more quantity that you're proud of. And then on these hard days, when doubt floods in more than usual as you're trying to shrink the gap between camera you and the real you, you can come back to this principle that I learned from a successful mentor that has helped to remind me of my potential. It's called the principle of immense potential, which states you have more potential within you than you could ever develop in your lifetime. And true fulfillment comes from being on the path of developing that potential. So record one more video than you usually do today, and then make one change that closes the gap from the camera you to the real you. Repeat that process until someone close to you can't tell the difference between the camera you and the real you. Then tell yourself you got this and keep moving forward because you really can show up consistently in your marketing.